Errol Shohei, I don't know what that all is. That's the name. Which books from Ken Wilber do you guys recommend? That's a great question, and a difficult question. I've answered it a few times, and I want to answer it again. Whichever book you're drawn toward, it would be my first answer. I really like Wilber's earliest works. I really like Spectrum of Consciousness. It doesn't even have like spiral dynamics or altitudes. It's just kind of describing the personality to ego to psyche to consciousness in a way that's really comprehensible to like an academic Westerner interested in psychology or self-help or personal growth. That was made into a more sort of popularly digestible book called No Boundary, which led to a union state in me. It actually caused me to experience a higher state of consciousness. So I highly recommend that one if you're interested in accessing higher states without much access previously. Up from Eden is a really awesome book, and it's visionary in nature. It came from vision. And it describes the sort of external perspectives and the collective perspectives, how society and civilization and culture form out of these rudimentary pieces and how it evolves. It is to dismiss, again, that romantic notion that our goal is to go back to infantilism or go back to simpler times. No, this is our world, and we're growing upward and we're awakening outward. We're not going back to anything. We're going into the future. We're in the future already. And it's just waiting for us to catch up with us. The Atman Project is the sort of interior side to that, to discuss how you do that in self. And so those are all really great recommends. A lot of his books deal with a particular field: integral psychology, integral Buddhism, integral meditation, the religion of tomorrow. And there's books that deal with sociology and anthropology. So you can't go wrong, and they're largely the same book. They're all a detective mystery of growing up and waking up, and how that all makes sense and what it is. Some of the most popular starting points are Brief History of Everything and A Theory of Everything. Those are a pretty good encapsulation of Wilber when he was at his most popular. Sex, Ecology, Spirituality is a much more academic piece, and it's trying to cover a lot more ground. This is where holons are introduced and where the model is really fundamentally hashed out in a way that would appeal to systems thinkers and academic types. For those of you who are more into yoga and meditation and self-work on a spiritual level, I do recommend Integral Spirituality and Integral Meditation, because they're just so different than anything else you'll read on those topics. And it's all about growing up and waking up. All of the books are about that. I will say that around 2000, I think, is when Wilber was most in his stride and where he did his best work. I don't think that future books from him will be of the same quality. I don't think that books in the last 20 years have been quite up to snuff. That's just my own personal opinion. I do love his early works and his popular works. And I don't think you can go wrong selecting a random Wilber book. Every one of them you read, it kind of paints the same picture, but from a different perspective. And that's what I hope to do with my Altitude series. So really tough question to answer, and it really comes down to who you are and what you're looking for out of a book and what you hope to get out of it. So I hope that was a quick mini guide to Wilber's work. If you're more into the personal stuff, there's things like One Taste, which describe his spiritual states in a sort of journal format. And there's Grace and Grit, which was made into a film, which is about the death of Ken Wilber's partner, Treya Wilber, to cancer. And again, like what I'm doing, describing how heartbreak and grief and tragedy can become a motive, a vehicle. It can become that kick in the ass that you need to become a more awakened, enlightened, and cleaned up person, to make lemonade, right? That's what Grace and Grit is all about to me. And it's a terribly sad story, and it's a terribly beautiful story. And I encourage anyone to look into that. But it's like, if you just want the model, that book's useless, right? There's also a great book called Quantum Questions for those of you coming more from the scientific rational perspective. It is a collection of journal entries and statements made by some of the world's great scientists and physicists that show how they're fundamentally motivated by spiritual impulses, and how they're psyche aware, and how they're playing. A lot of what motivates them is spiritual in nature and not merely the quest for material truth. So lots of great books by Wilber, and probably more to come. He's looking like he's in good health, and I wish Wilber the best. Wilber, you're the man. I love you. You've done so much for me and in my own life, and look, this is what I do. This is what I'm interested and passionate about. anyone knows Wilbur, let's do an Unthink Me podcast. Let's do an Integral Naked together. Oh God, that would be so cool. Anyways, I don't think that'll actually happen while he's still alive, but I hope that it does. Although I'm not really, I'm not at that level. I do personally, I appreciate Wilbur so much, and I think he's suffered so much, and he's made so much lemonade in his life. So he's a great person to sort of look at his life and say, like, I hope I can do some fraction of what he's done to make lemonade in this world. And notice what he's actually doing. He's not teaching, he's not a guru, he doesn't teach enlightenment, he's talking about second tier. He's trying to get second tier out there. Teal and turquoise, interparadigmatic thinking, holistic thinking, integral thinking. That's what he's doing with his time, trying to build structures, trying to build systems, and society and culture, trying to make this a valid, legitimate, real thing that people talk about and people are aware of. I'm not a hero worshiper, I'm not a toady, I'm not a groupie. I don't like even being a fan particularly, but if I had to choose, my guiding light, I think Wilbur is a great choice to make, as a person, as a creator, as an artist, as a philosopher. And so a lot of what I do is modeled after Wilbur. I hope to be more like Wilbur in my life. That would be great.